So welcome to the Node.js package maintenance team meeting for August 27th, 2019. We're going to follow through on our standard agenda, which was in issue, actually I don't remember the issue off the top of my head, but it's in the one of the top ones in the repo.
242.
242, okay, 242. Does anybody have any announcements that they'd like to share before we start going down the issues tagged for the agenda? Okay, it sounds like we don't have any announcements this week. Let's look at what we've got tagged for the agenda. Oops, just take the first one, which I tagged onto the top, was document the current top 10 Express issues. Wes, I noticed that you'd, yeah, we do have Wes. I noticed that Wes had added some detail there, and I thought it would be very useful for him to sort of take us through that and give us an update.
Sure. So we discussed in our TC meeting a couple weeks ago now how we thought it was best to maintain these lists across, all the repos and orgs we have. It became pretty clear that managing it in a central place was not going to be a good idea. These things pop up and then go away, and new ones, are there all the time. So we thought we would use GitHub tags to do that. Unfortunately, because the project is structured in such a way that the work is being done so distributed, we didn't have a central place to, so we were looking at does GitHub have a good way to do a search that we could direct people to that would have the tags from all the repos that matter? But then we have repos that are in the orgs but aren't maybe focuses. So do the tags in those repos count? Anyway, there was a bunch of little discussions around how we wanted to manage that. So what we landed on was we needed a tool that pulled them all together for us. So that is what I went ahead and built. I posted a link to the page in the Express issue for that. So it was the issue in here for that. But I'm not seeing the link here. So
it's the Express GitHub IO status board.
So yeah, that's the link that is the result of this. Okay, yeah. I was going to post a link also to my sort of description. I'm just trying to find that right now. There it is. So the basic idea served the purpose of Express really well, but I think also sort of extends to what we're doing with a bunch of different projects that are unrelated. I also, so I just posted a link to my comment there. I also think it applies a little bit to the work that the OpenJSF JS Foundation is doing, where there's a ton of different projects with things in different states, but there's a lot of work that needs to be tracked across all the different repos. So the goal here was to pull those tags. So I posted some screenshots, but you can also click the link and go, it's very much a work in progress. So, don't judge too harshly. But the idea is this is infrastructureless. So that was, I think, one of the key requirements I wanted to set was this could be run straight off GitHub. So with GitHub Actions, that made it a little bit easier. But the first iteration was I just ran it on my local machine, did the index job, and then pushed to a GitHub Pages branch. That, is not real time. So with GitHub Actions, I've got it so that it will run every 2 hours, and it does a reindex and then rebuilds the GitHub Pages branch. I'm pulling in a bunch of random things here that, I have this top contributors list. We could discuss, I think what value people see in showing here. But I think the big thing that targeted this issue was these tags on the left. So we have help wanted and discuss are ones that were already existing in Express and all the repos. We would probably want to standardize on one. Or I don't know. There's two subtle differences in why we did this. Help wanted is actually a PR should be opened from this. So that's more like good first issue. So I'd like to actually transition us from this to good first issue, but as it stands today, we don't have that. And the discuss is more about these are ideas, or these are maybe issues that people are having that we'd like people who are not necessarily super familiar with the project, but you can still come in here and pitch in, maybe if it's just, analyzing the ideas that are being presented and giving an opinion. And then we have meetings, obviously, for TC meetings, but then top priority is the top 10. So as I think the version I've built here only has 2 labeled, but we're starting to roll out those labels on more of the issues. We're waiting on one for TypeScript support that Blake Emberley was supposed to open, but I think hasn't yet, because that is one of our other top issues. Yeah, and so this is just this is an idea. If I have it pushed on this PKG.js organization, I'd be happy to, if people want to collaborate or have input and ways and directions we could take this that would make it more valuable to this group specifically, or if there's other projects that have a similar structure to Express that could see a lot of gain out of centralizing the work so that they can direct new users to one place instead of go read through the 4 orgs and 40 repos and get up to date on all the issues that are being tracked. So this is a start, and then we have some plans for writing some automation on automatically tagging things with these specific tags. So we're going to write, the next thing I'm going to work on now that I've finished this is a GitHub action that looks at new issues and PRs, automatically tags them with things like needs triage, and then we had some ideas in Express on how we want to manage that. I don't know if that is something we'd want to propose here as like a practice, but we haven't written it up yet, so I hesitate to go too much into it. But the idea is basically we'd have a whitelisted list of users who can triage, and if they make specific comments, we would then add labels to those comments. Those labels being the ones that show up in the status board. So you could say like needs maintainer attention, or stuff like that would help us get more people involved without necessarily needing them to have commit access right away. We'd obviously love to move them to commit access, but on Express we're a little bit more cautious with that since the impact of the project is so large. So anyway, so that's sort of the synopsis here.
That's quite interesting. And I think one of the key things is it pulls together a whole bunch of different repos, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it gives
because any one repo, you already have this, right? So if you have one project repo and that's it, that's already solved by GitHub. This is specifically for the use case where there's lots of work being done in different repos, and there's a need to centralize the status, of the project in that way.
Because I mean, even for like the node repo, we have a lot of different repos, and so you don't necessarily get the unified view. So that's quite interesting.
Yeah, so I brought it up to Jory on the foundation side, and she was saying one of the most valuable things would just be centralizing the list of meetings, and all the issues. So all the docs and the meeting notes. She was saying it's really hard for her to manage that across all the projects in the open JS Foundation. Node similarly, and the package maintenance working group. As soon as we start those phases, the first phase is just a couple of projects, but as soon as we have 30 projects on board, managing the work across there, I think is going to be a chore. And I think this might be a solution for that.
Yeah, even the meetings, like if they're basically based on a tag, like our auto-generated meetings, you can go to our calendar, but the ones that are actually like the issues, again, you'd have to go to each individual repo to find all those. So it's actually, it sounds interesting. So that definitely sounds good to see if this is like something that at the OpenJS level can be rolled out across the other projects as well. Specifically for like the package maintenance side, I guess what we want to then look at is say, how do we start to use this information to try and get more of the, the people who showed interest in helping out with packages involved?
And I think that's definitely the next step.
Oh, go ahead. Question about the top issues. Is that the latest issue from each of those tags, or how is it marked as top?
This is what I say. It's a work in progress. We got a lot of work to do. So technically, this is the sort order as per the level DB database. So I have put no sorting into this at all. It's just I'm stuffing them in level DB, and whatever order they come out in, I take the first 3. So we would probably want to make that a lot better.
Maybe
And-
like a tag that says how important it is or something, or number of comments, or I don't know,
Yeah.
something. Some
Yeah, no,
metric.
I agree. Yeah, I think a sort of composite approach might be best because I think newness is good here, but also activity. Yeah. Anyway, I'd be open if you want to collaborate on what would be the best way to show this. Maybe you could open an issue on that repo and we can start discussing it.
Sounds
some
good.
of them, like top priority, I don't, if there's going to be 10, it doesn't matter so much because those aren't the latest ones. Those are the ones which the Express TC has tagged to be ones they would like to see progress on versus the latest issue somebody opened or whatever, right?
Yep.
Because I can even see like there could be a very active issue, but it might not be the priority issue for the Express team, right?
Mm-hmm.
Agreed.
So I think it's important to make sure that like what we do, if we focus and raise awareness and like try and encourage people, that it is focused on, here are the things that really the Express team will in this case will say, hey, this is great that we're having more help on these, versus there's a huge discussion on this, but I'm not really interested, kind of thing. Or
I think
maybe I'm not
maybe
interested,
more
but
than one
not
kind
priority.
of like maybe more than one kind of section or something like that, especially as we talk about the node or OpenJS level, where it's like the most used tag or something like that, like tag cloud style, where it's like, it seems that a lot of people are having problems with X tag type of issues. Maybe that's a larger opportunity at the OpenJS level to come up with some sort of broader solution that helps the community at large, kind of a thing. But this is awesome, and I look forward to like digging in and thinking about other ways to approach organizing them.
Does it make sense for top priority to be at the top?
Yeah. Again,
just off the top
by
of my
all
head.
means. So what this is doing is just looping the items in the level DB. So they're coming out in an order, and all of this is very valid feedback. Please feel free to open an issue and or go solve it in the code, because it's over there accepting PRs. It's not very clean. So like I said, don't judge too harshly. But
Thank
but
you
yeah, I
for
think
doing
these would be things.
Right.
Mhm.
I'm trying to click on release file, man.
Oh, well, yeah, this is the, you're in the screenshot though. If
yes. Okay.
yeah,
That
it does
works.
click through.
Yep.
If you go to the actual board.
Sorry, let me try. I'm just trying to get back to that now.
A little, just down a little bit, I think, from where you are. There's the link right there.
So I want this guy. Oh yeah, and I should be able to just click that. So if we go there and we say, I'm just looking like what concretely can we try and point, we had a number of people who showed interest. Like, is this something that we should can now say, hey, here are the things that, if you have time, can you go try and help and look at?
Yeah, so we still have some work to do. This was to centralize the tags. We still have some work to do into getting more of the tags on the issues.
Okay.
So we discussed, open source sometimes moves a little bit slow, and we'll just
Yeah,
have to accept
absolutely.
that. But we have the plan. Now we just have to execute on some of the ideas. So it is
Okay.
still a little bit light here. The discussion and help wanted we've used for a long time. So those ones, if you click on the header, that shows more than just the top 3. Oh, maybe not. What did I do wrong here? Maybe go back and click on just top issues. Sorry, this is my weekend project.
Okay.
So this is all of them. So this would maybe be the page to start with if we wanted to link people to. Again, open to like better ways to present this, because it's just a big long list and that's not super helpful. So
So is it, do you think do you think it's worth waiting a little bit longer before we try and go out and say, hey, here's what, here's the things that could really use some help? Or is it worth, starting with what's there? Or I just want to get a feel for.
I'm not afraid of showing incomplete work here on this particular tool if it gets help to the issues that are tagged here. So the issues are valid and real and ready to go.
Okay.
This UI of it is, the only thing that's maybe not ready. See, there you go, broken link. Again, like I said, totally work in progress. I need to fix those links apparently.
Okay.
So it's clearly not ready to
right. So
send people to.
We'll check in next week to see if, if it's time to start to try and say, okay, we've got a list of, concrete work we'd like people to help out with. Now let's start asking people to do that, right?
Yep. Yeah, that sounds good. And if in the meantime, if anybody wants to start participating in that, that will make it move a lot faster. I'm, quite busy, so.
Yep. In terms of what I've seen, especially like under the discuss tag, it's pretty common for conversations to have ended and the tickets just to not have been like automatically closed or anything like that. So it might be helpful for whoever wants to take it on to start by implementing or putting together a PR or an issue ticket for implementing something that Wes was talking about the other day about adding some kind of automatic ticket closer or issue closer. So if somebody wants to help out with that, it may not be a ticket that's actually on this board here, but that might be something that would help to shorten these lists a little bit.
Absolutely. And if somebody wants to open up that ticket, I will then, or that issue, I will tag it as a top priority because that's definitely one of them. You'd have to go, so the issue here is that you have to go to all these repos and do it, right? So that they're spread out everywhere. So anybody who takes this on is going to have to do a cross repo effort, right? They're going to have to open up probably 30 PRs to do that, which is great. I mean, if somebody wants to take that on, that would be phenomenal.
Is that something that's automatable?
Yeah. Okay. That would work too. Yeah, probably.
I'm just curious, that would also then be a handy tool that says, hey, you're, one of the repos, just run this thing and you'll get a PR that says, please, that enables the auto close bot or whatever it is. As long as it doesn't require like more manual work to make it happen.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that would be a great tool.
Which board do you think that would go on? Like an OpenJS sort of a ticket or like a Express ecosystem ticket? Is there like one Express repo that applies to all of the other siblings?
Yeah, discussions is sort of where we keep a lot of those conversations. If you wanted to start there, that would be a good spot to keep track of the work.
It's either that or this repo. We could have something in our board that says, here's one of the things that we've identified that's going to be useful for Express and beyond. Something.
So my only concern with this repo is that for beyond, yes, for the specific goal of on Express, we need to get that rolled out. I would like to at least have one in that discussions repo so that Doug and the other maintainers are aware that this is something we're moving forward with and have a chance to comment.
Makes sense.
They won't pay. They might be paying attention to this repo, but I wouldn't count on it. So.
Right. So Edgar, if you were thinking of doing that, like an issue in this repo with a link to an issue in the Express repo saying, and here's the first one here's the one we're going to test it out with. Wes said this would be great.
Yeah. That sounds like a scope I can happily agree to.
Okay. Awesome.
Feedback, and then maybe we can figure out is like, hey, is this something we publicize at the OpenJS level as a tool that's available to the projects and whoever else actually? Or actually, I could just see like, as part of our package maintenance effort here, we want to publicize tools to make it easier for the maintainers. And if it's, obviously if you've got a bunch of repos, if you could just go somewhere and say, please give me a PR to enable the auto close bot for this, and this one, that sounds like it fits that bill.
So in a weird way, this status board could be a launching ground for that too, because one of the things you have to do to set this up is list all of the repos.
Right.
And this pulls like a bunch of metadata about what type of repo. So like, for example, you're not going to submit a auto close issue bot. An auto close issue bot you would, but like things like updating, other code related things you'd want to look at, like, is it a JS package, right? Is it what like qualities about it? So for like Express, if you wanted to, you could pull the JSON list of projects for here to do as your tooling input.
Right.
Yeah.
You could have a dashboard, like you could see in the end, the dashboard could have a button that says update my, make sure I've got a auto close on all my repos.
Yep. Yeah. And so one of the things, if you go to the projects thing, so I haven't done this yet, but it's on my to-do list. I have a to-do list on the repo for this status board thing. So I got a bunch of badges here. I'm not sure how valuable all of them are, but what I really want to add is things like little icons for, does it have TypeScript typings? Does it have, and we could add this kind of thing. Does it have, is auto close bot enabled? So you could then look at the project and say, oh, which ones don't have it? I'll go add it to those ones, right? Or which ones don't have TypeScript typings today? If I'm the TypeScript person who's really into it, I'll go down this list and just find anyone that doesn't and open a PR that shows that. So the idea would be to put more information in here. I know it's already a busy page, so maybe there's some designer help that could be done to make that
Some
more
of those
digestible.
sound like, watchers and stars. It's kind of like, versus some of those other things might be more helpful to the maintainer, right?
I completely agree. I started with this mostly because we had this thing called badge board, and it was being poorly maintained and had the restriction of was only worked on one organization. So I was hoping to do a little two birds with one stone here and make this a replacement for the badge board, as well as centralization for all this other stuff. So this page is not optimal. I would love to get some design input on how we could make this more valuable to everyone.
But yeah, the concept of having that list and even definitely. And then you might even want to make it like, it seems to me you'd want to actually change these over time, right? Like if you're trying to roll something new out, for example, you might want to add in that that new column near the front and push some other things nearer to the end, or
definitely.
But generally being able to get a looks with all this stuff easily looks really useful. Because I could see having at the package maintainer toolkit that we might build here, this would be a good piece of that. Like, here's your dashboard. Here's a dashboard you can start with.
Yeah, and I also thought this might be valuable to like individual maintainers. I don't know. I'm obviously thinking of odd use cases, but if you maintain 100 packages, this could be a way that even you just like promote to your, you put it on your website and just say like, hey, look, support me because I maintain all of these. Or I don't know. I think there's a lot of use cases where we're listing this kind of stuff and having a good view in here is maybe.
Or
valuable.
even just have so you can keep an eye on some aspects of all your packages that are important to you.
Yep.
Okay, so it sounds like our concrete next actions are Edgar's going to open that other issue, and then we'll review next week to see if we're ready to start to promote specific things. Does that sound right?
I opened both issues for selecting and implementing the bot. So let me know if I should change it to just selecting and discussing, and then another ticket for actually implementing, or that way we don't have tickets that are unclosable for extended periods of time. Whatever works.
Seems fine to me.
Cool.
Okay, so I will flip back to, if I can get back to, am I going to be able to get back to my minutes? Okay, actually I wasn't sharing that. So, so there we go, back to the minutes. Let me just, okay, good. I see a few, so actions, wait until next week to see if we're ready to try to promote drive towards issues. Okay, thanks for that overview. So the next thing on the agenda is OpenJS Foundation project progression. Let's see who put that on the agenda here. So I think it was Dominicus, you added that.
Sorry, which one? I think it's 238.
Yeah, sorry, it was 238. I think I just, here, I can share that one for a second here. I blinked out for a second. So it sounds like this was just added to make sure we think about how it relates to this particular group. I mean, I think there's definitely some synergy. What I think is, though, that not all packages will necessarily join a foundation or even the OpenJS Foundation. So the group that we would, that the foundation that will be foundation members is probably a subset of the packages that we would potentially want to target helping. Now, the foundation has had there have been some discussions at that level of sort of like a JS Commons, which would be like resources and help for, beyond just members. So maybe there's some overlap or synergy as that gets ramped up, but there hasn't really been too much work at that level yet.
Right. Would it make sense for me to find whichever document we have that documents the progression of how you get this group involved? And I suppose I'll just add a link to whatever document is on OpenJS Foundation. And we can then close this issue. And then I guess for now, we can remove the label for the agenda, right?
Yeah, that makes sense to me, unless anybody else has a suggestion.
Sounds good.
Okay, so we'll do that. Going to add links to groups. Okay, so the next one on our agenda is standard grammar keywords for reference to Node.js release lines. So as I remember, we had a list, and on this one, I think Bethany was going to give us some feedback from the release group, right?
Yep.
I think otherwise, in parallel, we've also incorporated it into our support package information.
Yeah, right now, value are already in the document.
Okay.
The release meeting will be at 29, so we can watch what they will decide.
Okay. Okay, so at this point, probably not too much for us to discuss in the meeting itself. We'll wait for that feedback. And I think it's still worth, we can always adjust our support documentation, the support info in the package, because it's still a draft. So we don't necessarily need to block on that, but we'll wait on this feedback and then incorporate it. Make sense?
Absolutely.
Okay, then I think we can move on to the next issue, was discussion of the support file itself, which we've had a bunch of discussion back and forth. I'm just going to scroll down to the very bottom. Sorry, go ahead.
Yes, there are some new comments in the past days.
Right, are those comments, like, I think some of the comments were still around the discussion of whether it should be like inline in the package or a dynamic link, right?
Exactly. But
okay.
I think that we could merge and going on with the discussion maybe in other requests or with new ideas from the feedback that we will receive.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I just said I second that. I think we can merge the questions. There were new entrants into the conversation, and I think we have went over all of their concerns at some point or another. They're not invalid concerns. We just have already at least partially addressed them, and if we hold up, just because we're waiting on new people, I think it'd be just easier just to make edits once we merge it than it will be to, continue to hold this very long issue, how many comments on this issue. It makes it harder to manage.
So I'm just typing in, I think you should be able to see it. So our plan would be to land as is. It is draft still anyways. So then I think we want to write up a blog which introduces it along with some of the contentious points, live, non-live, right? So basically says to give, and I think because one of the comments was that providing that context along with the doc is actually quite useful. So if we actually wrote up a blog that says, hey, we've been working on this, this is what we've currently got, here's the discussions we've already had in terms of, should we do this, should we do that, this is the rationale for why we chose what's there now. And then basically use that to drive, because, we thought this was at least, our group, the core group has a consensus on what we think it should look like. Now let's get the broader consensus and to sort of drive that review through, say, a blog post with the additional context. And then hopefully use that feedback to revise and then promote it to non-draft.
And I just want to add, from NPM's side, we're really looking forward to having some sort of solution for this. As a lot of people will have realized most recently, there's been some progression in the community for trying to get funding and sort of support landed and some experiments that are being had. And we're fully, Ahmed couldn't be here on this call, so I'm sort of standing in here on his behalf from NPM, but we're totally behind getting something like this landed and supporting it as quickly as possible. And so I'll be also contributing, I think, to this discussion after this meeting with a few things that, I think we could potentially update to make this more rounded out spec.
Sounds good, because certainly at some point we're hoping we can get like npm init or something like that to populate the default values for these things.
And Darcy as well, I think there's an open RFC by K.E. Mitchell for a sustainability property that sort of overlaps, like technically conflicts, but spiritually overlaps with this proposal. So it would probably be useful if NPM's planning on adopting this proposal, with or without your suggestions, it would probably be useful to at some point soon indicate that on that RFC.
For sure.
I dropped the link to that. I had the tab open. I dropped a link to that in the chat. Also, they are going to have a little Google Hangout or something, I don't know, sometime next month. I'm on the invite for that. So I told them that I would bring their ideas and feedback. I said I could be a conduit from them to this group. So I think it's for us and Ken Mitchell and Mix Irvine, I think, and a few others. Just sort of, I think they want to continue with their experiments. God bless them for doing that for the community, because it's obviously drawn a lot of ire from people. go for it. But I might not want to be on the forefront of that. But I'm happy to take any input they have and bring it back to this group. And then I linked to them. I posted an issue in that funding repo that said, hey, do you want to collaborate? And I think Frost said yeah, and he actually asked when the next meeting of this was. I posted a link to this. I don't know if he was able to watch or join, but I think the overlap is strong, and I think they're interested in participating in the bigger picture stuff as well. So.
Okay, that sounds great. In terms of the link that Wes is it 187 that you talked about? No, that was the one that was potentially overlapping. Oh, you've already got it in the minutes. Thank you. Perfect. Okay.
Oh, somebody did. Yeah. Are you talking about the funding repo one? Because there's also, I opened an issue to ask if they wanted to collaborate with our group in the funding, which is the one that.
No, yeah, if you have that, it would be good.
Okay, let me find that really quick. Yeah, okay, I found the link. Come on. Posted that in the chat as well.
Okay, let me paste that in. So I guess the question is okay, we probably need a volunteers to start working on that blog post. I'm willing to volunteer, but it would be good to have maybe a few people work on it.
I can help out if you want, Michael.
Okay, who is that?
That's Darcy.
Darcy, okay.
Although I'm not officially on this team, I've been watching for a bit now. So.
Sure. Anybody else? I guess we already had, and I can't see.
Just to point out, being on this team is a pull request away. So.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's not. So Manuel, we already had you lined up, I think, to write a blog post for something, right? I'm trying to.
Yeah. For sure, I can help.
Okay, so I'm gonna say Michael. So.
So yeah, Glenn. I've got over all my other volunteering things I've done this summer. I'm available again, so
okay.
I'd love to chip in. I'll be careful what I volunteer for in the future, though.
Okay. Okay. Sure. So I've got Darcy, myself, Manuel, and Glenn. And if anybody else is interested, just let me know. Otherwise, I'll send something out to get us working on that.
I'm happy to review, just not to write.
Yeah.
No, sorry. Go ahead, Emily.
I was saying I'd be glad to proof it.
Yeah. Well, absolutely. We'll put something together and get the overall team send it out, or like probably in an issue in this repo, so everybody can comment and help improve it before it actually goes out. And so, and just to confirm, like it sounds like we're all comfortable landing that. I mean, there's no objections in the issue itself. But if nobody has any here, we'll go ahead and land that, and then move on to the blog post as the next issue. Next step.
I think we brought up an issue last week about, I think it was last week or the week before, for the target. Again, the grammar was just one thing that we want to make sure that we're being inclusive there. And then I've also tried to looking over what the spec is like, the way it is right now. I mean, I'm okay with landing it and then maybe making revisions for.
Absolutely, like if you want to.
Yeah.
If you want to open a PR as soon as we get it landed, that way we can sort of discuss pieces in more specific consumable. Do you have but if there's something you want us to discuss a little bit now, that would be good too.
Yeah, maybe just the difference, because I'm catching up on some of the conversation here, the difference between, let's say, engines and target, and the consideration of using the grammar versus existing sort of operations that we have to support sort of package versions.
Right. So engines. So engines is a list of So what you're saying, okay, maybe we should use engines instead, or is that the?
Yeah, I'm wondering, one, the spec, the way it's written now, is it to allow for multiple support entries in that object?
Yes. So if we have in the target, let's see, you can have multiple support entries. So you can definitely say that, like, for this particular target, here's what we have for support, and then have something different. Like, let's see if we go at the very top. So you end up with versions. So, and each version in that, each entry in there is something that has things that will qualify it based on version, target, response, and so forth.
Yeah, so
this
just the nomenclature, maybe because engines is already used, and also then you would have maybe the grammar would be less contentious then, because you would be utilizing like actual version numbers and like.
Well, it's the, so what we've ended up in targets is that, and we've namespaced it so that, like, you can have the target be, it's now a namespace and then an array. So you could use something else for, that was one of the key discussions, was we didn't want it to be just node specific. So you can have whatever namespace. We've only defined what it would be for node. And now it does include Semver versions, so you can specify individual versions. But then we did define, these other things like LTS active, and we thought that was important because we want people to be able to specify an intent without having to update it every time node changes. So, right, like, if a version of node goes out of LTS, you don't necessarily want to update your support policy if what your intent is that I support all the LTS versions.
Yeah, so that's not covered by like a caret operator?
Well, not necessarily, because, like, LTS versions are, say, 10, 11, and 12, or sorry, are like 8, 10, and 12, but not 11. So they're not necessarily sequential. And
you have the ability to put an array in there as well, though. That's as far as I know.
Yeah, so you could, if you wanted to say the current LTS versions, you could easily put together through this entry, which is the Semver range, like basically a XXX is an array of Semver ranges. But we don't want people to have to change that. So, like, if LTS is currently 8, 10, and 12, or sorry, it's currently 8 and 10. As of October, it will be 8, 10, and 12, and we don't want people to have to change their entry, which with like a range you would have to do, right?
For sure. Yeah, like I'll review this again,
okay.
But I think I don't really have any blockers. I think probably just it would be like minor revisions to
okay. No, sounds good. So yeah, because if engines can do all of this, then I think we're always for using something that exists. So yeah, take a look and then submit a PR for what you think would make sense.
One thing I didn't think about until you just brought this up here is doing this when the LTS window shifts. So if you drop support for node 8 when the LTS window shifts, that's a major version bump. You can't get around. You have to change it, right? So, this doesn't necessarily compensate for that, and I didn't think about it until now. So we should maybe, do we feel like that would need to be resolved before we merge, or are we all right following that up with?
But it's like, this comes back to the contentious issue of you can change your support level whenever you want.
Yeah.
But it still might be a Semver major change, and like, so I think, like, if we put in LTS, if you put in, let's say, LTS active, and then, or put in maintained, and then 8 drops off, unless you have published a Semver major version, you're still obligated to maintain support for node 8 on that package. Now you can say no longer supported, which means
obligated in what way?
kind of the
if
contract.
you want to say that your package is compliant with Semver and you don't want to piss off your entire user base.
Yeah, it's kind of the contract that you're making with your user base. And that's kind of like, this is a brand new part of that contract that you make. So yeah, I sort of see where folks are.
I wonder if maybe we, like in the same way we have regular -n, where you can put in any value and then that's what you're committing to. I wonder if we could change these keywords to indicate the lowest current, like the lowest current value or something. Or, you know, like, so you could say like LTS active :10, and then it's all the current LTS actives since 10 was active or something. Or I don't know if that's too much complexity. Maybe we should just drop the keywords and we should just use Semver ranges.
I'm
And
still
usually,
sorry.
yeah, go ahead.
Regarding the keywords, so the actual node versions that a specific release supports is a fixed thing, right? If, for example, you have Express 4, it supports node 6, 8, and 10, right? If you want to drop node 6, you need to bump major. However, the support field and the keywords, they indicate the intent and the policy of what you intend to do. So come October, we will start supporting 12, which is not a Semver major, right? But in the support field, you say we support LTS active, which means come October, we will support nodes 12. And whether you maintain support for node 8 when node 8 drops off, the intent in your policy, you say that, you know, we will support active LTS releases. Once node 8 drops off, all bets are off. That's the only thing that it says, right? And once node 8 drops off the LTS support, and you do want to drop the support for node 8, then you publish a Semver major, and then you no longer support node 8. But in the support policy field, you say that LTS active means that when the new LTS comes out, we will start supporting it. And when the LTS drops off, we may or may not support it anymore, but we don't have a commitment to support it. Now, when we drop support, we will have to bump major, but we don't have a commitment to continue supporting this version.
But there is a commitment there to in that, like if you're in V1 and 8 drops off, there is a commitment to not publish a version of V1 after that that does not support node 8.
Correct.
And there is I think it's worth considering that, like, that may not be super apparent to everyone. Like right now, it's really obvious when you change your engine's value or when you delete a matrix from Travis YAML that you, like, it's really obvious that you're dropping support for a node version. And in pull requests and stuff, it may not be apparent. And if like CI just invisibly stops running on node 8, people may publish a 1.x and not realize that they've broken node 8.
Yeah, so absolutely. The two fields are complementary, right? One means which versions you in, and Semver major bump is mandatory when you actually drop support.
And so I think it's also trivial to say that for packages that are intending to maintain support, they can have LTS and a Semver range in an array, right? So the change there would actually be pretty simple, is when the window shifts, if the maintainer cares to say, yeah, I still do commit to supporting this, all they have to do is do a PR that makes it, changes it from the string LTS to an array of 8, LTS, right? Or whatever the, you know, the range is at that.
That's kind of the thing, though, is that the best practice that we should be encouraging should not be just casually drop support for something the instant it goes AOL. There may be some people that agree, that think that should be the best practice. But I would say there's not consensus on that, both in this group and in the wider community. And we should be careful not to come up with a versioning scheme that implicitly pushes one of the sides of that debate. In the same way we've tried to avoid committing to a decision on the like files versus npm ignore stuff. And I think we've made the right choice there in not implicitly privileging one of the sides of that debate. I think we should do that here too. And like at some point, like, sure, I could put LTS, 8, and then, you know, I've committed to supporting 8 even when it drops off. Or I could do LTS and then 8 and then 10, right? But and that would achieve the good semantic that and no one disagrees with of, as new things enter LTS, we definitely support them. But that at that point, you're kind of defeating the purpose of having the keyword, because then I can just like add 12 when it goes into LTS manually. And like documenting intent is useful, but
So
there's two intents here.
keyword-
One is the intent to add support for new things as they enter a category, which is great, no controversy there. The other is the intent to drop support for things as they leave a category. And that's something that I think it is really important to not be implicit, to not be silent. Like it should be an explicit manual choice in order to drop that support. And it's totally fine if you want to do that, but then you should be doing that alongside a semper major. And the way I think to encourage doing that with a semper major is forcing an explicit decision. I don't know how to do that with the keywords.
Right. I think we could add additional like maybe not with the existing keywords, other than having to, I think you could express that as you've already said, but then you'd have to actually change things. So I think potentially adding some keywords or qualifiers to them might make sense. So that could be a PR to add those additional keywords / qualifiers to express that intent. Because our goal is to let you most easily express the intent of what you're going to be doing going forward.
And it's not just that. As a package consumer, when I open up the package for the first time, I want to see what's going to happen with that package next year, right? So
Right.
Just as you know, at the end of the year, you might add 8 to the list and you will say that we support 8 end of the year, but you would also like to say that we will not indefinitely support node 8, right? And you do need to express that as well. So this is just providing the vocabulary to express certain things. So the keywords, they do have their place there in terms of letting people say these things, right? Because nobody would ever expect anybody to keep maintaining node 6 or node 8 indefinitely.
I do. I maintain 0.6 on all my packages indefinitely.
I bow down to you, great sir. This is truly the right commitment, but not all of us can afford to do that. So yeah.
So I think that
do a time check too. We're
Yeah.
at 157 right now.
So yeah, so maybe I'd suggest if you can submit a PR that adds or modifies those keywords so that we, probably I'm thinking like add some keywords so that you can cover that. Hey, I will add new LTSs, but I'll continue to support everything else. That I think that's the best way to cover that because we've obviously got a bit of a gap.
Yeah, and I think to be clear, we're going to merge this. That PR will be an independent.
Yes. Yeah. I think that'll make it easier to say, okay, here we need to add this for these few things. And yeah, so I'll still after this meeting, I'll go ahead and land this. Then I'll expect a number of PRs to go in and start modifying these things that we still need to discuss. Okay, sounds good. Yeah, and thanks for the time check, Emily. Okay, so let's move on to the next issue, which is support field to support license.
I assume we're going to time box this with the time check. So should we maybe take a quick look at the remaining thing and see if there's anything that's pressing instead of just following?
Yeah, good idea, because we're down to 2 minutes, aren't we?
Yeah, yeah, like we definitely only have time to do one thing, I think.
Yeah, so basically we've got, I think I've shared my screen. These are the things that are still tagged. Does anybody call out one of them in particular that we need to dive into?
Hey, Michael, I just want to point out that on 164, I've written the blog and submitted PR, and it's under review. I see that LJ Hop has made some comments, and I'll be reviewing and merging those comments after the meeting.
Thanks.
Any other things? Because I think otherwise we probably are out of time. And so
yeah, for 218, for example, can be closed. See when we will merge the 220.
Okay. (200) is 220.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
220.
And
Yep.
then this one is PR submitted. Any others? Okay, if not, I think, yeah, we'll leave everything else to next time since we're at 4 o'clock almost exactly. Thanks to everybody for taking the time to join and have a good discussion. And I look forward to talking to everybody again next time.
Thank you all.
Okay, thanks.
All right,
Thanks.
bye.
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 Everybody.